There is a moment right before your breakthrough where everything goes quiet, and it feels like God has gone silent. But He hasn't. He's just asked you to let go of the wheel. Sit with that for a second, because if you're watching this today, you already know what I'm talking about. You've been praying, you've been believing, you've done everything you know how to do, and still nothing. No answer, no open door, just silence. In that silence, something starts happening in you, a kind of exhaustion that isn't just physical. It's the exhaustion of trying to hold together something that was never yours to hold in the first place. Here's what I want to tell you, gently but honestly. Sometimes your breakthrough hasn't come, not because God is withholding it, but because He's waiting for you to open your hands, not your fists, your hands. You can't receive something new while you're gripping your own plan, your own timeline, your own idea of what the answer should look like. This is what surrender means, not giving up. Surrender is trust wearing its work clothes. It's faith when faith stops being a feeling and becomes a decision you make again and again, sometimes hour by hour. Look closely, and you'll find God has been teaching you this all along. Quietly, patiently, not to punish you, but to prepare you. So let's walk through 7 signs. This is exactly what's happening in your life right now. The first sign: your own strength has stopped working. Think about the thing you've been trying to fix. A relationship, your health, your finances. A decision you can't make no matter how many times you run the numbers. You've tried harder, tried smarter, prayed about it, and then tried to fix it yourself anyway, just in case God needed help. And nothing is working. That's not failure, that's arrival. You've arrived at the edge of your own strength, and that edge is exactly where God does His clearest work. His power is made perfect in weakness, not in our competence or our 5-year plans. When Moses stood at the Red Sea with an army behind him and water in front, he wasn't there because he'd failed. He was there because God was about to do something only He could get credit for. If Moses had found his own clever way around, the miracle would have been a strategy instead. So, if your strength has run out, breathe. You are not stuck, you are positioned. The second sign: God keeps closing doors you thought were open. This one hurts because it feels personal. You had your heart set on something, a job, a person, a plan for your future you could see clearly in your mind. And one by one, the doors closed. Not slamming, just quietly shutting, like the answer was always going to be no. A closed door isn't always God punishing you. Sometimes it's God protecting you from a future you can't see yet. He knows what's behind that door in ways you never will. And in His mercy, He says, "Not that one. I have something else for you." Think about Joseph, sold by his own brothers, falsely accused, forgotten in prison for years. Every door in his life looked closed and hopeless, but he wasn't being punished. He was being positioned for a purpose bigger than he could imagine, one that would eventually save the very family that betrayed him. If a door has closed in your life, don't assume you've been forgotten. It might mean He's protecting the story He's still writing. The third sign: you feel the pull to control everything, and it's exhausting you. Your mind runs the same scenario over and over. What if this happens? What if that doesn't? You try to plan for every outcome because somewhere along the way, you started believing that if you think about it enough, you can prevent the pain before it comes. But control was never your job. laying it down was always meant to be an act of worship. Jesus asked, "Which of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life?" He wasn't scolding anyone. He was inviting them into rest, saying, "You were never built to carry tomorrow, only today." That exhausting pull to control everything isn't a sign you need to try harder. It's a sign you're being invited to trust harder. There's a difference between planning wisely and gripping desperately, and God can see which one you're doing even when you can't. The fourth sign, your prayers are changing. Maybe a year ago, your prayers were mostly requests. Give me this. Fix that. Change him, change her, change my situation. And slowly, without you realizing it, they shifted. Quieter, less demanding, more honest. Maybe now you're praying something like, "I don't understand this, but I trust you anyway." Or, "I don't know how this will work out, but I know you haven't left me." That shift is the sound of surrender being formed in you. Your prayers are becoming less about managing God and more about knowing Him. Think about Jesus in the garden the night before He was crucified. He didn't pray, "Make this easy." He prayed, "Let this cup pass from me, but not my will, yours be done." The most honest, most surrendered prayer in all of Scripture. He asked, and then He trusted the answer, even when the answer was hard. If your prayers sound less like demands and more like surrender, that's not you losing faith. That's your faith becoming real. The fifth sign, you're being stripped of the things you used to lean on. Sometimes God kicks the props out from under us. The job that gave you your identity, the relationship that gave you your worth, the routine that made you feel safe. When those things shake or disappear, it can feel like the ground itself is falling away. But God doesn't remove what you're leaning on because He wants you to fall. He removes it because He wants you to finally lean on Him. There's a man in Scripture who built his whole identity around what he owned and what he'd accomplished. He came to Jesus asking what he still lacked. And Jesus, looking at him with love, told him to let go of the very thing he held on to tightest. Not because it was evil, but because it had quietly become his God. He walked away sad, unwilling to trade his grip for God's grace. If something is being stripped from you right now, ask yourself honestly, was I leaning on this instead of leaning on Him? Sometimes the loss isn't cruelty, it's an invitation. The sixth sign, you feel a strange, unexplainable peace in the middle of your uncertainty. Your circumstances haven't changed. The bills are still due. The diagnosis is still uncertain. The relationship is still unresolved. By every logical measure, you should be falling apart. And yet, there's this quiet peace underneath it all. Not because everything is fine, but because you are. Scripture calls this the peace that surpasses understanding. It doesn't make sense because it isn't supposed to. It only shows up after you've stopped trying to hold everything together yourself and started letting God hold you instead. If you felt that strange calm in the middle of your storm, don't second guess it. That peace is proof surrender is already happening in you, even in places you can't fully explain. The seventh sign, you're starting to trust God's timing more than your own. This might be the hardest one, and also the clearest sign you're almost there. You've stopped demanding God move on your schedule. You've stopped measuring His faithfulness by how quickly He answers. You're starting to believe His timing, even when it's slow, even when it doesn't make sense to you, is not late. Scripture speaks of the fullness of time, not the fullness of your patience, not your 5-year plan. God has never once been early or late in the history of His people. He is always exactly on time, even when His time looks nothing like ours. Abraham waited decades for the promise of a son, long enough that it looked physically impossible. But it happened at exactly the right moment, in exactly the way that made it undeniably God's doing. If you find yourself trusting His timing more than you used to, even a little more than last year, that's not weakness. That's the fruit of everything He's been doing in you. So let's bring this together. I don't want you to walk away thinking surrender is just a nice idea. I want you to feel it in your bones. If your strength has run out, if doors keep closing, if you're exhausted from trying to control everything, if your prayers sound different now, if things are being stripped away, if there's a peace you can't explain, and if you're starting to trust His timing more than your own, you are not stuck. You are not forgotten. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. Every sign you just heard isn't evidence God has left you in the dark. It's evidence He's doing surgery on your heart, gently loosening the grip you've had on your own life so that His hands, not yours, are the ones holding your future. I know surrender is scary. I know it feels like loss before it feels like anything else. But think about what a seed goes through before it becomes anything at all. It has to be buried. It has to sit in complete darkness. It has to let go of its old form entirely before it can become what it was always meant to be. From the outside, that looks like death. From God's perspective, that's the beginning of a harvest. You're not being buried to be forgotten. You're being buried to be planted. So here's what I want to leave you with. Wherever you are right now, in the waiting, in the silence, in the space between what was and what's coming, you are not alone in it. God has not walked away from you. He has walked closer than you realize, close enough to hear every honest prayer, close enough to catch every tear, close enough to know exactly when the fullness of time will come. Your breakthrough is not canceled. It's being prepared, the same way you're being prepared for it. So breathe. Let your hands open, even if it's just a little today. You don't have to have this all figured out. You just have to keep showing up honestly before the God who has never once let go of you, even in the moments you felt like you were the one holding on the tightest. He is not far from you. He never was. And the very fact that you're still here, still listening, still willing to surrender one more time, that's not weakness. That's faith. And faith like that always leads somewhere good.